Facebook Live. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, 1, -1. All right. Facebook Live. Good afternoon. Beautiful Sunday afternoon. I just do my research as usual, and I'm going to be reading today some things that I found might be helpful. You might find it interesting. I find it interesting. I'm always looking for prevention. Anything. So I live by a datum. Prevention is the cure. So rather than try to treat something or mitigate its symptoms, why not just prevent it in the first place? So some of this data that I'm going to present today is going to highlight why some people are more susceptible to the virus, the coronavirus that's going around now, or the influenza virus. Some things that we can do to help strengthen our immune system and prevent the virus or influenza during next flu season from coming on. And I want to just put a disclaimer. This is definitely for educational purposes only. I don't recommend you doing this. If you want it, I'm going to do a blog post. So I'm going to do a blog post with a bunch of slides, links to all the stuff that I'm going over today that will be up later tonight or tomorrow, and you guys could take a peek at that. So I'm not suggesting that you try any of these therapies on your own. If you want to do them, that you can. Don't do what I do. Follow national, state, county, and local regulations. And like I said, don't do what I do, okay? So if I say I'm doing it, it just means I'm doing it. I'm not giving you permission to do it. If you want to do it, you can do it. All right, so the first thing I want to go over is baking soda. And I'm just going to be reading from this. This is going to be easier if I do it this way. In a 1924 booklet published by Arm & Hammer Soda Company, page 12, the company starts off by saying the proven value of Arm & Hammer bicarbonate of soda as a therapeutic agent is further evidenced by the following evidence of a prominent physician named Dr. Dolney S. Cheney in a letter to the Church and Dwight Company. So Church and Dwight Company was the founders of, they created the Arm & Hammer brand. In 1918 and 1919, while fighting the flu with the U.S. Public Health Service, it was brought to my attention that rarely anyone who had been thoroughly alkalized with bicarbonate of soda contracted the disease, and those who did contract it, if alkalized early, would invariably have mild attacks. I have since that time treated all cases of cold, influenza, and la grippe by first giving generous doses of bicarbonate of soda, and in many instances, within 36 hours of symptoms, would have entirely abated. Further, within my own household, before women's clubs and parent-teachers association, I have advocated the use of bicarbonate of soda as a preventative for colds, and the result that now many reports are coming in stating that those who took soda were not affected, while everyone around them had the flu. So this goes back to the Spanish flu of 1918 and 1919 with the use of baking soda. So definitely keeping the body alkaline is huge. I take from nuts.com potassium bicarbonate. I think the potassium bicarbonate version is more effective because we need both the bicarbonate and we need lots of potassium. And I also make recommendations sometimes with a half dose of baking soda, half dose sodium bicarbonate. Sometimes the potassium bicarbonate could give people a little loose bowel or stomach upset. So if you do decide to try the potassium bicarbonate, start off slow, 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, see how your body tolerates it. But I'm going to be posting recommendations on dosages that come directly from Arm & Hammer in a slide in the blog that I'll post the link tonight or tomorrow once I get that blog put together. All right, the next one is, and these are all from research, every one of these that I'm going to be going over, except the baking soda, is from a research journal article found on PubMed. All right, this is a section in a research journal article. The paragraph is entitled Alkaline Diets and Drinks. And it just so happens that they use the coronavirus, not this particular coronavirus. The coronavirus was found to be quite stable at pH 6, so an acidic pH. Now, this is not inside of a human being. Humans don't have a low pH of 6. Quite stable at pH 6 at 37 degrees Celsius. Half-life, it survived a half-life approximately 24 hours, but was rapidly and irreversibly inactivated by brief treatment at a pH of 8 at 37 degrees Celsius, half-life approximately 30 minutes. We'll cover that. Diet and drinking water play a role in blood pH adjustment. The normal range for arterial blood pH is between 7.35 and 7.45. Alkaline forming diet or drinks could induce low-grade metabolic alkalosis, which causes only a very small increase in blood pH within the range considered to be normal. So we could get at the high end of that range, 7.45, which is optimum. Within that range, this means that the system equilibrates near the high end of normal rather than the lower end of normal. In a slightly alkaline environment, viruses might be weakened or do not multiply efficiently. Immune function may work better in alkaline medium as well. I mean, we all know that. If you go to any alternative cancer clinic in the country, if you read any cancer book, any book on disease, an alkaline environment is always recommended. Disease fosters in a more acidic environment. So, and again, it's a narrow pH. A tenth of a point in pH can make the difference between cancer and other types of metabolic diseases. So again, baking soda, 60-cent box of baking soda or a $6.99 pound bag from nuts.com of potassium bicarbonate is a very inexpensive preventative technique that can be done to keep our bodies healthy. Any type of green powders, chlorella, spirulina, eating dark leafy greens, things that are rich in potassium and magnesium. Sodium is also alkaline. Those keep our bodies really, really healthy, and they lower blood pressure. They do many things. Now, the next paragraph in the same journal article is on earthing and grounding. So basically taking your shoes off and putting your feet on bare earth. So grounding is connection of human body to earth by different methods such as bare feet, walking on earth without insulator. Earthing might be an inflammatory and antioxidant source for human body. Now, I added this section in here, so it's not going to be in my blog post. Let me click this off here. Just to give people a little education on how things occur inside of the body. So viruses can produce only inside cells, and they gain entry by using many of the receptors involved in immunity. Once inside the cell, viruses use the cell's biological machinery to their own advantage, forcing the cell to make hundreds of identical copies of themselves. Although phagocytes I like to call them, and other components of the innate immune system can, to a limited extent, control viruses. Once a virus is inside a cell, the adaptive immune response, particularly the lymphocytes, are more important for defense. So lymphocytes will mount more of a viral defense, and the neutrophils will mount more of a bacterial defense. At the sites of viral infection, lymphocytes often vastly outnumber all other cells of the immune system. Virus-infected cells that have been killed by lymphocytes are cleared from the body by phagocytes. So on blood tests, whenever I get a complete blood count with white blood cell differential, in case you guys, just give you a little tidbit for the future, if you do a complete blood count with white blood cell differential, you always look at the level of the white blood cells. So equilibrium of white blood cells are going to be around 5 to 5.5. So if you initiate a war, you're going to send out all your troops at once. So the white blood cells are going to ramp up. After a war has been going on for a long period of time, you've killed off a number of troops, you don't have any reserves left back to put into the war, so the white blood cells will start to diminish and go below 5 to 5.5. So that's how you can tell that the infection is a chronic infection. They'll have low white blood cell count. And then you look at the neutrophils and lymphocytes. So if you see a 30-point skew where the neutrophils are, let's say, at 60 or above, and the neutrophils are below 30, that means it's an active or an acute or chronic viral, or excuse me, bacterial infection. Now, the further the skew, you get up towards 80 and 16, 80 neutrophils, 16 lymphocytes, you know, that's a pretty good bacterial infection. And then the opposite is true. If you have elevated lymphocytes and the band between the lymphocytes and neutrophils is narrow, let's say it's 46 lymphocytes, 41 neutrophils, you know, the person then is fighting a viral infection. So it's an easy way to determine what type of infection a person is seeing. And this has nothing to do with whether something is flagged as high or low. So most medical doctors and even functional medicine docs look for the highs and the lows, but all you're really looking for is the patterns within the test. So you look within the test to see the ranges. Now back to this. It is now accepted that an overwhelming inflammatory response is the cause of human deaths from avian H5N1 influenza infection, and the same with the coronavirus now. Part of the inflammatory response involves immune cells, the various phagocytes, which are the neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, and mast cells, that secrete powerful oxidizing agents. So anything that oxidizes is bad. They're called free radicals. In a process known as respiratory burst, we're calling it now the cytokine storm, a complex mix of reactive molecules such as hydrogen peroxide, oxidized halogens, chloramines, and oxidizing radicals such as hydroxy radicals accumulate at the site of inflammation, where they aid in the destruction of invading microorganisms and tissue debris. To restore their electrical neutrality, these agents tear electrons from structures of invading organisms and damage cells, rapidly destroying them. So that's how free radicals work, is they grab on to electrons, and that's why we supply with antioxidants, which are usually electron donors. Recent research has emphasized the significance of charge transfer relation to scavenging or neutralization of free radicals at sites of injury during and after the oxidative burst or cytokine storm. Evidence comes from studies of the role of electrons in mitigating the consequence of inflammation when living systems are connected to the earth. Earthing accelerates immune response following vaccination, as demonstrated by increase in gamma globulin, something that can be measured via blood test. Earthing has demonstrated anti-inflammatory effects and improvement in the immune response, and both effects have been shown to be essential for influenza cure. So we are surrounded by cathode. The sun is a cathode. Hydrogen is a positively charged particle. So in the air and from the sun, we have a positive polarity. We are anodes. We have a slight negative charge, and the earth is an anode. So basically, if we build up a harmful positive charge, we want to dissipate that. So we go barefoot on the earth and we dissipate the positive charge, and then we actually can suck up a negative charge from the earth the longer that we're connected to the earth. And cultures since the beginning of time have been using earth as a healing modality. So if people just walk around with insulated shoes inside their house and they never touch their bare feet to the earth, they're always maintaining that net positive charge, which then is in essence an inflammatory charge. Okay, so simple technique: go outside and get in the sun, go bare feet on the earth. 5 minutes, 15 minutes would be fantastic. And so the next part is about the sun and the influence, how we can predispose to viruses. So back in 1918, during the Spanish flu, they had a lot of outdoor hospitals, putting people on cots outdoors, and people who were outside fared far better than people indoors. So now this is some data on UVB and viruses, and how during the warm times of the year, summer and fall, there's less influenza than during the summer and the spring. So this is avian influenza and UVB blocked by biomass smoke. So I'm just going to read the highlights to this one because this was a long journal article. Influenza viruses and non-pigmented bacteria are killed by UVB wavelengths in sunlight. So that's our midday sun from, let's say, 11 to 2, really during the peak summertime, 10:30 to 2:30, okay? And this would be the virus itself in aerosol drops. Also, UVB penetrates through our skin to a slight degree. So the tiny little capillaries at the surface of the skin, the virus is going to be traveling through those capillaries. So theoretically, as the blood is moving throughout our body and we're being exposed to UVB, it can, in my mind, can reduce the viral replication, viral load, and possibly act as a cure. Now, again, theory, I haven't been able to find any journal articles on that. Biomass smoke significantly suppresses natural levels of UVB, and severe smoke pollution reduced UVB by up to 95% during burning seasons in Brazil in 95 and 97. Reduced UVB on 6 days in August 1997 was well correlated with an increase in the ratio of non-pigmented bacterial vulnerable to UVB. And it was killed by and they saw reduced incidence of that type of bacterial infection in hospitals. Although airborne influenza viruses were not measured, 1997 hospital admission records at Alta Floresta, Brazil, showed that influenza incidence was highest during the burning seasons. The human cases of avian influenza, so basically they were reduced on the sunny days, and hospital admissions were increased during the burning seasons and times that the UVB was less. Human cases of avian influenza in Thailand and Vietnam peaked during the winter burning seasons of 2003-2004. Assuming similar optical properties of biomass smoke in Southeast Asia and Brazil, where UVB and optical depth are highly correlated, optical depth measurements over Thailand and Vietnam by NASA's Terra and Aqua satellites suggest highly suppressed UVB during these avian influenza outbreaks. Human cases of avian influenza in Thailand and Vietnam since December 2003 have peaked during both the rainy season and the burning season. Thus, periods of prolonged cloudiness and severe smoke pollution could play a role in initiating avian and other influenza outbreaks by attenuating the solar UVB that might otherwise suppress influenza viruses and outdoor air exposed to sunlight. So this is the part where I said, don't do what I do. Right now, we want everybody keep their 6 feet distance. Here in Southern California, LA and San Diego has closed their beaches. Orange County has closed some of their beaches, their boardwalk. Newport Beach, you could still go onto the beach. You can't go on the boardwalk. I think you're not allowed to go on the boardwalk. Don't quote me, but I know you could go on the beach. You just can't go to Laguna and a couple other beaches in Orange County, but LA has closed all their beaches. That's the best place for people to be. The best place for any human to be right now is outdoor in UVB light, where if you are breathing out, and it's going to be the next study that I'm going to go over, if you do have the virus, you're basically giving yourself a treatment to lower the viral, in my mind, to lower the viral replication and reduce the severity of the virus by increasing your vitamin D and supplying the body with UVB. Based on the next study I'm going to go over, the virus is actually killed in UVB light. So if we're outdoors, the air is dissipating the viral droplets, dropping them to the ground or dispersing them, and the UVB light is killing the virus. Now, like I said, I'm not advocating you guys go out and defy any ordinances, but I'm going to find a place like this morning where I found a rural hiking trail, and my wife, daughter, and I, we did 5 miles of cross-country running out in the middle of nowhere. Took my shirt off. It's 55 degrees, but the sun is on me, so I'm getting that little bit of UVB. I'm trying to do my part to create prevention by building up my D and exposing myself to UVB, and obviously trying to find an area that there's no people. Okay. And if it warms up around here, I'm going to find a section of Newport Beach, and I'm going to go lay out on the beach. Okay, I'm not going to be around any other humans, but I definitely want to get my UVB. I might just go out to my backyard. It just depends what the waves are doing, because they haven't kicked anyone out of the ocean yet down in Newport. Okay, so let's go over the next one. This one is the influence of simulated sunlight on the inactivation of influenza virus and aerosols. Now remember, this is artificial sunlight, but natural sunlight is always going to be more effective because you're not taking pieces of wavelength out of the whole. Our bodies they evolved or were created under all wavelengths of light. Ultraviolet A and B, there could have even been a little bit of C, tens of thousands of years ago coming through. Maybe not, but there possibly could have been. All visible light, the rainbow, and then infrared and far infrared and near infrared. So when we have the full spectrum of light, there's a synergistic effect to that. So it would even be more powerful than this here. So this is the influence of simulated sunlight on the activation of influenza virus and aerosols. Results. Measured decay rates were dependent on the level of simulated sunlight, but they were not significantly different between the two relative humidity levels tested. In darkness, the average decay constant was blah, 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 equivalent to a half-life of 31.6 minutes. So basically an hour with no UV light. However, at full intensity, simulated sunlight, the mean decay constant was blah, 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 equivalent to a half-life of 2.4 minutes. So under full spectrum UVB light, the virus lasted for 4.8 minutes, then was inactivated. Okay. So if we could all get out in the sun and increase our UVB level, to me, like I said, the penetration level of UVB is very low in our body, but it is hitting blood cells within the body, and then we do inactivate if the virus is passing around through the bloodstream. It's definitely going to be locked up in the lungs, but where does the blood go? It goes to the lungs to pick up oxygen, so we're going to get the benefit of it there. My theory, though, I have not found a research journal article to support that. Conclusions. These results are consistent with epidemiological findings that sunlight levels are inversely correlated with influenza transmission, and they can be used to better understand the potential for the virus to spread under varied environmental conditions. So just that part. Findings that sunlight levels are inversely correlated with influenza transmission. So the more we stay indoors, the less this again is my theory, and I'm not telling you to do what I'm saying here. The more we spend our time indoors, okay, indoors, not just locked down in our house because we could get into the backyard or front yard. Indoors, we're not getting the UVB, we're not getting the vitamin D. So we actually increase our susceptibility and the rate of viral transmission when we do go out. So if we're going to the stores, we're going to the pharmacy, visiting somebody that is a relative in the hospital, if that's the case, we're at a more susceptible and vulnerable point because we're not getting the ultraviolet B on our body. Now, this one's a little bit long, and the last one I'm going to go over, but there's a lot of data in here. It just goes by, it's a regional study in Brazil. Were Equatorial regions less affected by the 2009 influenza pandemic, the Brazilian experience? So this is another reason why I feel, and if you look up studies, the people at the equator experience less disease overall, less autoimmune disease, less cancer, less Alzheimer's, because they have higher levels of UVB, because the sun is perpendicular all year round. There is no dropping of the sun, no tilting of the earth. So basically they're making the same level of D in December as they are in July. So they have constant UVB and they have constant vitamin D production in their body. Well, again, during the times of the day when the highest levels of UVB are out. So in the study, latitudinal gradient in the pandemic-associated mortality reported was consistent even after controlling for factors previously associated with transmittability. of the pandemic, including population size, density, age structure, level of urbanization, and distance from the presumed start of the pandemic. Interstate differences and mortality could have alternatively derived from economic differences, as better nutrition, health, and access to nursing care could translate into lower mortality. However, the lowest burden estimates were in the low-income states. So the lowest burden estimates were in the low-income states, in the Northeast and North regions, whereas the much higher mortality levels were observed in the rich states, in the Southeast and South regions. So the poor people living in a better climate fared better than the rich people who had access to more medicine, better care. They did far worse, and the mortality rate was higher. Now, there's many reasons to that. And I've said to my patients all the time, I will take a surfer, somebody who's getting but they're eating Taco Bell for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or just eating a crappy diet. They're not necessarily eating Taco Bell. They're just not eating a Whole Foods. They're not spending $3,000 at Whole Foods every month, and they have a vitamin guru going in to pick out all their supplements. They're just hanging out at the beach. I'll take that person's health over, let's say, a stockbroker living in New York, living in the 53rd floor of the Trump Tower, working at the 53rd floor of an office building under blue light, but given $3,000 a month to go shop at Whole Foods and have a vitamin guru pick out all of their supplements. I'll take the surfer's health any day of the week over that person living in that other environment, but having the access to the Whole Foods and the supplements. You can disagree with me. I know it's the truth, because our environment controls our physiology to a greater degree than anything you'll ever put in your mouth. So the rich people may be more stressed. They're living indoors, closer proximity to each other. Maybe they're not getting as much of the vitamin D and the UVB. The inverse association between latitude and income in Brazil, in this sense, speaks against the hypothesis of a prevailing role of low income towards a higher risk of pandemic-associated deaths throughout Brazil. In addition, differences in vaccination and antiviral administration cannot explain geographical differences in pandemic-associated mortality, as in Brazil, mitigation efforts were coordinated at a national level, and the H1N1 vaccine was distributed at the end of the second pandemic wave in 2012. So 2010. So basically everyone north to south, east to west got the vaccine. Overall our results suggest that the observation of a hardly burdened south and a milder mortality burden near the equator region may be associated with regional differences in environmental factors that modify the transmittability or severity of pandemic-related infections, as similarly suggested for seasonal influenza. So the same for seasonal influenza in Brazil. The notion that environmental factors, chiefly climate, may underlie the reported differences in burden is also indicated by the observation of differences in pandemic-associated mortality within the Equatorial region itself, as northeastern states were in general characterized by lower burden than the northern states. Considering that influenza epidemics tend to be associated with the rainy season in the lower latitude areas of Brazil, this pattern might be related to the fact that rainy season in the northern states are longer and more intense than the northeastern region of Brazil, where the climate is drier. So, lots of things here that validate environment controls your physiology to a greater degree than anything you will ever put into your mouth. So the key takeaways to this is, one, we can be scared, and I've had patients come into my office. Their nerves, to me, is creating more stress response and a lowered immune system than is warranted for this situation. So I have people coming in. Now I wore a mask, and they're wearing masks and gloves, and they go to the grocery store, and they come home from the grocery store, open up the garage, take off their clothes, burn their clothes, take everything out of the packages. They boil all of their produce, in, you know, a 10% bleach solution, and then you know, then you can't even eat that, and then they wash all the packages down and take the food out of the packages and repackage the food, and then sterilize their body with 10% bleach. I mean, it's the stuff I'm hearing from people is completely ridiculous. We don't need to go into that level of panic. Okay, uh, I'm not thinking that I'm immune to anything, but I'm also a realist, and so that's why I want to read a lot of this stuff to you guys. Prevention is the cure. Keep your body alkaline. Inflammation does not like to thrive in an alkaline environment. The virus produces inflammation. Inflammation wants acidity. Keep the body alkaline. Um, the same thing can apply if a person is exposed. Once you get into a hospital, all bets are off because you can't do anything. You're not going to be able to bring anything into the hospital with you, so all bets are off there. So we want to make sure that we keep our body healthy. Ground, dissipate the negative positive charge, which is an inflammatory charge. Grab onto the negativity of the earth. We're negative. We have a net negative charge in our body. The earth is a net negative charge. You complete the circuit with the hydrogens in the air and the cathode of the sun to our negative body to the negative earth. So we're completing a circuit. The baking soda. I mentioned in other updates all the anti-inflammatory supplements that we can take. Eat an alkaline diet, which would be rich in potassium and magnesium containing vegetables. I like the cruciferous vegetables, onions, garlic, and mushroom. Drink plenty of good water. I love Baja Gold sea salt, so BajaGoldSeaSalt.com. The fine and the natural, it's one of the most fascinating salts on the planet. It's a medicine. I don't even like calling it a salt, but we use that in our cooking, and I put it in my drink every time I have any liquid to drink. The other thing is get outside. If you don't want to go to the beach because you feel like you're going to be violating some ordinance, don't go to the beach. Okay, if I'm going to go to the beach on Tuesday when it's 80 degrees here in Southern California, or at least in the mid 70s, high 70s, go down to Seashore Drive. I'm going to park. I'm going to stay away from people. I'm going to find a nice little stretch of beach, which is not near anybody. If the waves are up, I'm going to catch waves, but I'm going to lay out on the beach and I'm going to get my vitamin D and I'm going to get my UVB. I'm running 4 miles every other day, shirt off, trying to get as much UVB and vitamin D as humanly possible. I have potassium bicarbonate, which I take a half a teaspoon of that twice a day to keep my body alkaline, and the potassium deficiency has been shown to increase severity of these different types of coronaviruses and influenza. Get plenty of sleep and try not to stress. This is the biggest thing. Everyone is going to do what they're going to do, and I can't just say please don't stress. Okay, but there's tons of data on the internet. Just type up coronavirus or influenza and alkaline, grounding, sleep, vitamin D, vitamin C, supplements, water. Just type up any combination of words and you're going to find some simple data that will give you confidence that if you could put layers together, you're going to help to lower your susceptibility rate, and even if you do get it, lower the severity rate of this. Okay. The book The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, reading that every day. Fantastic book. I'm going to keep doing research on this just to give a different perspective. I'm reading one of my mentors who I loved, who I'm not really digging so much lately, is constantly posting just fear and negative and how many people are dying and I told you so. That's not the way that we should be doing this. We should be giving people tips on what they need to do to help prevent it if possible and lower the severity of it if possible. Okay. So I'm just going to look to see if I have any questions, answer those, and then I will post. I have all the slides up I just need to put it into a blog, and then I'll post under this video, I'll post a link to the blog that'll have all the links to the journal articles and the dosing on the bicarbonate. So let's see. Carol says, so walk around barefoot on the beach. Yes, which is what I'm about to do. Fantastic. Yeah, it's actually the best. You get a like for that one. Actually, you get a heart for that one. More confirmation, love it. You're welcome, Cindy. And what about the app about finding optimum sun? Okay, that app is called Dminder, D-M-I-N-D-E-R. It's a free app, but you could have a paid feature to get more utilization from it. I just have the free app. Every time you go out in the sun, you click start sun session. It'll first ask you to put in your zip code. It will then only come on when you're in a UVB time frame. So let's just say I turn it on at 8 in the morning. If there's no UVB at 8 in the morning, it's not even going to allow me to start my sun session. So as soon as you can start your sun session, click on, and then based on the time of the day or the day of the year, it's going to tell you how many IUs of vitamin D you're making per minute. So midsummer, you're making 130 plus IUs per minute. Right now, we're maybe making 60 or so. I'm right at the mid 33 latitude, so I'm one of the last latitudes making D all year round per literature. Maybe it goes a little bit further north, but really right about where we're at here in Southern California, we can make a little bit of vitamin D all year round. The band narrows, maybe it's only between 11 and 1, but we can make vitamin D. Sometimes you have to be out for 45 minutes to make an adequate amount, but we can get it. So Dminder is fantastic app for people to get, especially in northerly climates, just to see where your D is. And on that little side note to that, vitamin D supplementation is good only if you cannot go out into the sun. It does not work the same. Supplementing it does not work the same as making it via the sun. Evolution and creation created everything. We evolved or were created in an environment to have things as natural as possible, or they were natural. So we weren't meant to eat fish oil pills. We were meant to eat fish. We weren't meant to take B12 supplements and iron supplements. We were meant to eat red meat because the iron is heme. We were meant to be out in the sun and not take vitamin D supplements. Okay, so we were meant to get everything from nature and not these surrogates, which come in at a way distant second and only should be used if nothing else is available, or it has to be used for a short period of time to get you over the hump. Okay, best blue blocking glasses. There's a bunch. Swanix, Raw Optics, Blue Blocks. Those are good brands. What's the app called? And I'm just going to put it in the comments section. Dminder, Google Play Store, Dminder app. All right, guys. I'll continue doing research. I may do a live tomorrow or the next day. You know, I do these because it gives me also something to do to occupy my time. If you guys have any questions, as usual, please put it in the comment section. You could post a comment to my Facebook page anytime. I'm available for Zoom video consultations. I'm keeping office hours because I have a lot of sick patients. So if anyone does need to come in, I could do a Zoom. They could come in the office. I am spreading people apart every 15 minutes with a block of time. Everybody's hanging out in their car until the office is cleaned and sanitized in between patients, okay? My number is 714-639-4360, and you can always email me at sibodoctor@gmail.com. sibodoctor@gmail.com. Let me see. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you very much as well. Fantastic rest of your weekend. Be safe. If you need anything, please let me know. We're all in this together. All right. Have a fantastic night. Be well.